everyone, and welcome to episode 120 of the Dear Herbalist podcast titled Herbalism as a Clinical Practice, Intake, Client Management, and Ethical Scope. My name is Justaria, and if you are new here, welcome. And if you're a returning listener, thank you so much for tuning in. I absolutely appreciate you. Tonight, we are going to bridge traditional herbal wisdom with modern clinical practice. I'm going to dive into what it really looks like to utilize herbal medicine clinically with structure, ethics, and care. So tonight, I'm going to cover 3 essential pieces of that, and that's number 1, intake forms and the first consultation. Number 2, managing client care over time. And number 3, staying within your ethical and legal scope as a practitioner or as an herbalist, however you want to call yourself. So this episode is especially for those of you who are stepping out beyond home or folk herbalism and you want to build a solid, ethical, and impactful herbal medicine business where you are seeing clients now. So if this is you, go ahead and continue to tune in. Get your notebooks, pen, pads, papers, back of receipt. Write the notes down because you're going to get a lot of information tonight if you are interested in clinical herbal medicine or clinical herbalism as they call it. So let's look at first intake forms and your first client consultation. This is your first touch point with your client. So your intake form that they fill out should go beyond just asking what is actually wrong. You want to look at the person as a whole. So it's a whole person snapshot. So on your intake form, you want to include personal and family health history. You want to include medication and supplement use. You want to include digestion, sleep, stress, cycles, elimination. You want to include emotional well-being. You want to look at dietary patterns, their lifestyle and environmental exposures. And also, very importantly, you want to look at what their goals are because you're not treating a disease. You're supporting a person. So during the first consultation, you want to actually be listening more than you're talking. You can ask clarifying questions. You can validate their experience, but you want to avoid overwhelming them with information or remedies during this time because you want to understand who is this person sitting in front of me? What are the factors that have contributed to where they are right now? And once you get a total picture of that, then you can go and say, okay, these are some recommendations that I want to make. But this part is very important because your job is to build trust with that person and identify patterns, not to fix everything in 90 minutes. Even if that's what they're looking for, that's not your goal. So you always want to make that very clear. During this first consult, this is what the expectations are, and this is what's going to happen. So during your first consultation, you really want to set the foundation as well as set the expectations so that people know and understand exactly how this process worked. Because a lot of times you'll have people come to you and say, okay, this is what's going on. This is what I need. This is what I need you to do. And I need this done in this time frame. Well, you as the herbalist, you understand that it doesn't work that way. So being very clear and not feeling pressure to just dive out there and address, people's expectations and make sure you follow what they say. It's really important that you say, okay, I understand these are some of the things that you desire to do. However, given the nature of your condition, your history, and all these other factors that I have to look at, these are some of the things that I recommend. So you're always keeping yourself covered. You're always making sure that you're very clear on what you're saying. That way, if you do happen to get a disgruntled person, it's like, listen, it's not like I didn't tell you, it's not like you weren't warned. It's not like I didn't say, hey, I know you want to do this within a certain time frame, but this is not how the body works, or this is not how plants work. Let me give you a little bit of understanding on how plants work. Some people want to hear it and some people don't. And the reality is you can't do anything about the people that don't. You really can't. You just have to lay the information out and just let it be where it is. But you always also want to always explain your scope. So you could say something like, I'm not a licensed medical provider and I don't diagnose or treat disease. I work with herbs, nutrition, and lifestyle to support the body's natural healing processes. So I make assessments and I make recommendations, but I don't diagnose or treat disease, because if you say those words, now you're following up under the realm of the medical community and you are in jeopardy for being sued for practicing medicine without a license. So you don't want to do that. Okay. You want to build the respect with your client and not fear. If you find yourself being more fear-based, then you probably want to check yourself. That's not a good idea. Now, second, client management. Let's talk about managing clients over time. You're going to need some systems. You're going to use a digital calendar and a booking system. And you always want to document your sessions, what was shared, what was recommended, how they responded. This is very important. And follow-ups are also very important as well. So make sure that you book them before the client leaves the first consultation. And I would usually recommend to follow up within 2 to 4 weeks, because this gives the client enough time to actually put the plan in action, as well as to gather necessary information if that's what you recommended, or give the body time enough to work with this new plan that the person may be on. So you may say, well, why do we need to follow up? Right? The important thing to understand is that protocols evolve. The body adjusts. Healing takes time. And so when you follow up, you're able to look at the person's body and see how they're adjusting and adapting to the protocol. You look at, okay, what things need to be tweaked, or what things are actually working well. It gives you an opportunity to be able to kind of partner with your client and walk alongside of them. But, okay, it also protects your time, because if you are in the helping profession, any profession, but especially in herbal medicine, you don't want people coming to you, that same client, every 2 days, 45 minutes, hey, what about this? What about this? What about, no, you want to protect your time. And so by doing that, you say, hey, I'm going to follow up with you. Now, something, really adverse happens, or, some really deep questions or something like that, feel free to reach out to me. But for the most part, I expect that you are working the plan that we came up with. I'm expecting that you're utilizing the herbs that were recommended. And then you can follow up with people that way. Otherwise, you're going to get completely overwhelmed and ran down by having these particular clients calling you every 5 minutes. So protect your time. Don't offer long herbal advice via text or social media, via DMs and that type of stuff. Instead, one of the things that you can say with your clients is that I would love to support you fully. Let's schedule a consultation so that we can give it the attention it deserves. If you don't do that, you're going to have so many drive-bys. I really do not prefer to do drive-bys. That's what I call them. And that's basically where somebody's like, hey, what can I do for this? Or, hey, my cousin's got this going on. What can they do for that? Or, hey, my stomach hurts and I did this and I did that. What can I do for that? And I typically tell people, well, there's a lot of questions that I need to ask you first in order for me to be able to give you a honest and complete and thorough answer, or even recommendation. So don't feel like you have to do drive-bys. Have a system already set up. And even if you're not in a professional space, let's say you're not doing clinical herbalism, but you are an herbalist, it's okay to do the exact same thing. Hey, I would prefer to set up a time to talk with you about these issues, because I may have some more questions before I can make any type of recommendations. That protects your time. The other thing with client management is that you want to track your formulations. So if you're doing custom blends, keep a record of it. Have the ingredients on there, the dosage, if you made changes, what those changes were, the client feedback. So they may say, hey, I did take this one particular remedy, but it's tightening my stomach up and it's twisting it around. So maybe you had to make some adjustments and bring the dose down. Write all of that stuff down. Or, hey, I decided to take a statin because my doctor scared me into doing it, so I decided to add that. You want to add all of that stuff to your client's records, right? But when you're talking about your formulations, if you're tracking them, this will actually help you refine and protect your work. So keep that in mind. Now, let's talk a little bit about ethical scope of practice. And this is very important because ethics is a very important topic. Okay. I know I said it's important twice, but it is very important because good herbalists know their limits. It is very dangerous to be a type of herbalist that has such a huge ego and you know everything about everything and you are overconfident about everything that you know, to where you miss things because you're so arrogant. You don't want to do that. You want to know your scope, what you can do and what you cannot do. This is very important. We as herbalists, we are not licensed medical doctors. And this doesn't mean that our work is any less valuable, but it does define how we can do the work that we do. So we can educate clients about herbs. We can suggest wellness support. We can empower them with different tools and brochures and information. But what we cannot do, we cannot diagnose disease. We can make some assessments, but we cannot diagnose. That is a medical term. Okay. We also cannot tell someone to stop their medications. We can make recommendations, say, hey, if I were you, but we cannot say, hey, you need to stop this immediately right now. And the reason why you can't do that is because everything in this earth involves chemistry. The pills they're taking is chemistry. The food they're eating is chemistry. The herbs they're taking is chemistry. The physiological processes in the body is chemistry. Everything in the body in the world involves chemistry and those chemical reactions that occur that either help the body or hinder the body. So if you have somebody that is taking medications and they have certain chemistries and things going on within the body and you're like, you know what, stop cold turkey right now. That's it. Okay. Now let's say somebody does that. Right. And then next thing you know, they turn around and have a heart attack or something. And it may not be because they stopped the pills. It may be because the cleaning process or maybe the chemical reactions that occurred as a result of that not being there. And now the body is making adjustments. But it caused, right, the casualty of that was a heart attack or something like that. Now the person is looking at you or the family is looking at you and saying, wait a minute, you told them to immediately stop their medication. And now this happened. They don't understand that there may be a time period where the body needs to cleanse and repair and to heal. And as a result of that, there are certain things that can manifest that may not be comfortable for the family. So you got to be careful. The other thing is guaranteeing healing outcomes. I'm very careful not to make any type of guarantees because there's a lot of factors that I don't have any type of control over. So I can't make those guarantees. I can say based on my assessment, I can make the following predictions based on either what's happened before or what I know about the herb or what I know about the human body. But no way can I say I guarantee you that if you do this, then that will happen. The reason why you don't want to do that is because you can't make those guarantees. One, the clients are not always honest with you. So you don't know what they're doing. You don't know if they're really following the protocol or not. You don't know whether they didn't add something in that they shouldn't have. Again, it's all about chemical reactions. You don't know these things. And because you don't know these things and you don't really know the full scope of the body, you can't guarantee healing outcomes. There are some herbalists out there, and it blows my mind, that are guaranteeing all of these different healing outcomes, and they don't even have the basic understanding of the anatomy and physiology of the human body. So how are you guaranteeing anything and you don't even have that basic knowledge? You have to have that knowledge to even get even closer, a more targeted approach. But even then, you still can't guarantee. And so if you start out right saying, listen, I can't make any guarantees, but I'm going to do the best that I can. I'm going to monitor you. And this is what's going to happen. You give people a realistic perspective of what can happen. Then you minimize the amount of people that are going to come and say, you know what, this didn't work. You promised this. It didn't happen. And now they're judging your character. Now they're taking advantage of the situation. Now they're like, listen, I'm not going to pay you. You promised this, you promised that. And because of that, it didn't happen. Now I'm not going to pay you. Now you're not going to have an income. So you don't want to guarantee any type of healing outcomes. So another important thing to know is to know what your red flags are. And all this goes within the scope of your business. You want to look at chest pain, fainting, unexplained bleeding, suicidal thoughts, cancer, liver failure, severe infections. These situations may require either a referral or some sort of collaboration with a licensed provider. Okay. It's nothing wrong with if somebody's having severe, sharp pain, you telling them to go to the emergency room. You're not a failed individual. This is a 911 type situation because you really don't know what's going on. And because of that, you got to put your ego over here and you got to say, okay, this person could be in a medical emergency. And because I'm a professional and I'm not ego driven, I'm going to say, you know what? You're in a medical emergency. I need you to go to the emergency room. Now, some herbalists are probably clutching their pearls right now saying, what? You're trying to tell people go to the doctor, the medical community is this. The reality of it is this, okay? Emergency medicine is necessary. If somebody gets their arm chopped off, okay, they're not looking for the nearest herbalist, nor should they be, okay? They shouldn't. If somebody gets their arm chopped off or has some sort of severe incident, they need to go to the emergency room so that way they can get immediate care. And the reality is that there's a lot of herbalists that really just have a basic level of knowledge, even in the world of herbal medicine. And so because of that, you may get a situation that may be too much for you to handle, or it is a medical emergency, and now it rests on your shoulders. Something happens to somebody, now you're liable. So at all times, you want to be a professional, not underqualified to address the situation. The other thing is consent. This is very, very important. This also covers you legally. And let me say this before I go any further. I am not a legal attorney. Please consult your attorneys for any additional information on how to handle legal situations when it comes to herbal medicine or anything else. This is for information and educational purposes only. Okay, don't come for me. But consent is always key. Why? Because you don't want to be accused of forcing something on someone. Again, people will turn on you. You got to be careful. Always protect yourself, because when the law gets involved, okay, there's a lot of people trying to cover their behind. There's a lot of people looking for a dollar. There's agents sent to your business to kind of jam you up. So you have to be on guard. You have to be vigilant. Get consent. Have your clients sign a consent form. Let them know how you're storing their information, how you're protecting their information, and make sure that you set boundaries about what you can and cannot provide. And make sure that what you can provide is not dipping over into the medical community's pot, because now they can accuse you for trying to practice medicine without a license. So make sure that this information is key. It's very important to have that. And then the other thing is, and that's just to kind of tie all that together, is that you want to think about liability. Consider getting herbalist liability insurance if you can, especially if you're somebody that is working in a clinical space. Consider getting that. Also, use clear disclaimers on your forms as well as your products. This is something that people may overlook, but it's something that is very necessary. You always have to think of, especially as a business person, liability. How do I protect myself against people that either have good intentions, something just happened, or people that have bad intentions, they're looking for a buck? How do I protect myself during this time? So you want to think about that. You want to make sure that if somebody is taking a piece of paper or a pamphlet or a brochure about information, even if it's information, let's say on cancer, or if it's something talking about diabetes and that type of stuff, you want to make sure that you have disclaimers on your paperwork. That way, if it's ever distributed anywhere, nobody is saying, look, they're saying this and that. And in the medical community, we talk about this and that. Protect yourself. Now, I'm a big proponent of, if you can, okay, talk about the mechanisms that are defective, okay? Don't use the terms. Don't use the term cancer. Don't use the term diabetes. Maybe focus on, let's say, insulin resistance and these type of things. What is the body doing? Because those terms, diabetes, cancer, all these other different disease names were given to us. But as herbalists, because we're designed to look specifically at the root, then we want to talk about what are those mechanisms, what are those biochemical pathways that are disrupted, or what is the imbalance. Talk about those things, even in your flyers. You may say it's also known as this or that, Or maybe you'll verbally say that to them and you won't have it written somewhere. But as you're doing your consultation or your education with your client, they'll be able to see like, oh, okay, we know what we're talking about. It's cancer or it's something else. But on this form and brochure, because she explained it to me that there's like an overgrowth of something or whatever, I understand exactly what she means by that. So education, education, education. Try to focus more on the mechanisms that are dysfunction or imbalances that have occurred rather than the given disease names. So that should protect you, hopefully, right? The other thing is stay in your lane. Don't try to be over here. Don't try to be an endocrinologist. Don't try to be a pharmacist. Don't try to be a therapist. Stay in your lane. There's nothing wrong with having conversations with people, but when you step into that realm of quote unquote diagnosis, now you're getting in trouble. Use the word assessment. Make your assessments based on how the client is presenting to you. Other assessment methods. Let's say you're doing the pulse or the tongue assessments. These are these other things. Make sure you're looking at that. Some other countries, they use the word diagnosis, but here in America, don't do it. Don't use the word. There are no protections for you. Just leave that word alone. So let me give you some final thoughts and some key takeaways. Being a clinical herbalist is an act of service, but it's also a skillful practice that is built on systems, discernment, and ethics. Let me say that again. It's also a skillful business, okay, that is built on systems, discernment, and ethics. And let me talk about discernment really quickly. It's really important as herbalists that you have discernment, especially as herbalists of faith, really people, period, because you need to know and understand who's sitting in front of you, what their intentions and purposes are, what they're saying, what they're not saying, and everything else that's going around you. Discernment gives you that extra know so that you have an understanding on what to do with that person that is sitting in front of you. So you may have somebody that's saying, oh no, I'm not taking medications and, everything is fine. But you have a certain discernment. You kind of like, I have a feeling that you might be. So let me look at the condition that you have. What is the quote unquote medical term? What is the typical medications that they would recommend, or well, as I would call in their realm, prescribe? And because I know that this is what's typically prescribed for someone that has this particular illness, then I have to make sure and do my due diligence that my formulations are not interacting with these particular drugs or any other particular drug that may be prescribed for that client based on its chemical profile. All right. So discernment is key. Also, somebody that may be sitting in front of you that don't have the right intentions. All right. Sometimes when you are someone who does a lot of good in the earth and you have a lot of fight and you're strong and all of that, evil is always present. It's always present. It's always lurking around. The scriptures say he walks around like a roaring lion, seeking who he may devour. That's a fact. So because we know that, we have to cover ourselves. So discernment is very, very important. So this is some of the things that I want you to take away. Number one, that intake is very important. During this time, you really want to build a clear, respectful, and whole person profile. This is the time where you are actually building a relationship with your client. And building a relationship is very important because that's how people trust you. And that's how people will follow the recommendations that you're making, because they're like, this person, this is a partnership. This isn't somebody standing over me, dictating to me what I'm going to do. And if I don't do it, then, they're going to use all these fear tactics and that type of stuff. They're coming from those systems already. Do not mimic those systems. No one wants to do anything out of fear. And anyone that has done anything out of fear, it hasn't ended well. So we don't want to do that. During this intake process, build your relationships, build a clear and respectful whole person profile. Number two, systems matter. And this is from scheduling to documentation to how you communicate with your clients. This is very important in a clinical herbal practice or business, however you want to say it. This is very important because 1, it'll help things go smoothly for you. 2, it'll help prevent you from being overwhelmed. Especially if you're a type of person like me, I like to write everything down. I'm a notes person, so if I had a clinical herbal business, I'd probably have notes all over the place. So, but if you have computers and software and all these other things to kind of help streamline a lot of these processes, it will help you. Also, documentation. So if somebody was to come to me and I'm like, I got notes scattered all over the place, and they say, well, you worked with this client. We want to summon you to the court, and I need you to bring all your records for what you were doing with this client and all this. And now you got people combing through your stuff with a fine-tooth comb. Or let's say you have auditors that want to audit your business books or your paperwork or whatever. You want to have a system of organization. That is very important, and establish that in the beginning. Before you even get started, how is all this going to look? How are you going to handle your books? How are you going to handle client documentation and intake? All of these things are important. So systems matter, and they help make things easier. So keep that in mind. The other thing, your scope is power. Working within your limits keeps your clients safe and builds long-term trust. It helps you also to be more effective because you know that I'm going to give 125% energy into my scope, what I can do, what my limitations are. I know exactly what they are. I will not go above them, beyond them, or over them. And because of that, I'm able to be more effective in how I help you, and I'm able to keep myself safe, keep you safe, and everything is fine. But above all, those are the 3 things I want you to take away from tonight's conversation. But above all, lead with your heart and not ego. At the end of the day, and I always said this before, and I'll continue to say this, herbal medicine humbles you. The closer that you get to the plants and you begin to understand them, and you begin to understand the Most High's purpose for them, and also for human nature, period, it humbles you. You understand that you are not in control of anything. You are just a facilitator of the healing process. But the body is in control of that. And most importantly, above all, the Most High is important. He's in control of that human being and their life and their path. So they're breathing because of him. If they stop breathing, it's because of him. Okay. So you have to lead with your heart. Don't have your ego involved, because that's how you miss things. That's how you make mistakes. That's how you destroy relationships with people. Because nobody likes an egotistical person. I don't care who you are. You don't have to know everything. That's an important thing to remember. You don't have to know everything, but you do have to listen. You have to learn, and you have to show up with integrity. And if you do that, you will find yourself being a very successful clinical herbalist, with a lot of people banging down your door, because they know you're organized, you're structured, you don't have an ego issue, you are about them, you're a collaborator, you're a facilitator, you're a motivator, and you get results. All right? So, I hope this episode has helped you. Please share it with another herbalist out there, or another plant enthusiast that may be considering clinical herbal medicine. And if you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on all of my social media sites at The Demystified Herbalist. And until next time, family, keep walking gently with the plants and boldly in your business. I'm out.